For the 6th season in a row, Walters is the official bar of the Nats Chat podcast, located across the street from the ballpark, just off South Capitol Street.
The pitch. Swinging a long drive, right center field for Garcia. Way back this one goes. Looking up his call at the wall, and it's gone! 3 rows in over the big row in right center field. Luis Garcia Jr. with his first of the season gives the Nationals a 2-1 lead.
And the pitch swung on line to left center field. That's going to be in for a base hit. Weaver cuts it off. 1 run is scored. Second runner coming to the plate. The throw home is not in time. Freeman scores. Potez scores. Call stopping at second. Espinal on at first with a single to left center and 2 runs batted in. And this is now a 1-run game. The Nationals 6 and the Dodgers 5. Now Shohei Ohtani, the batter, swung on, hit in the air to deep left center field. Back is the left fielder to make the play. That's Dalen Lyle. He'll throw towards second. Tagging from third is Espinal, who'll come in to score. And Shohei Ohtani, swinging at the first pitch, driving it to deep left center, has given the Dodgers the lead with a sacrifice fly. It's now the Dodgers with 4 runs home here in the 8th. Los Angeles leading for the first time 7-6 since their 1-0 lead.
And welcome to Nats Chat, along with Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. Mark is at Nationals Park, where the Nats have fallen to 3-6 in MLB's 2026 regular season, an 8-6 loss to the Los Angeles Dodgers at Nationals Park on Easter Sunday, completing a 3-game sweep. This was a game for which the start was delayed for 2 hours and 9 minutes due to rain. This was a game in which the Nats blew a 6-1 6-inning lead, shades of the Nats 6-5 10-inning loss at the Philadelphia Phillies this past Wednesday afternoon, in a game in which the Nats blew a 5-1 7th-inning lead. The Nats have lost 5 consecutive games, 0-5 since that 3-1 start. You can always email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We got this email from Jay Gillespie, writes Jay. OMG, I know, the Dodgers are good, but with this pen giving away anything and everything the offense accomplishes, we'll be fortunate to only lose 95 games this season. I dared to hope we might be 7-8 after our first 15 games, but we're still really bad. Another long year, as predicted. Well, what's new for Washington sports fans? Thank you for the email, Jay. Happy faces. Let's put them on and try to be optimistic. But yeah, this was a rough loss on Sunday for sure. You know, the Nats relief pitching and the team getting swept in this series by the Dodgers. Nats relievers over the 3 games officially combined to allow 13 runs in 13 2/3 innings. The Nats starting pitching over games 1 and 2, really bad. Was good in game 3. Foster Griffin did a nice job. The offense, all things considered, was decent, if not good. But Mark, the Nats in this series humbled by the mighty LA Dodgers.
So I think the 2 takeaways, Al, from all this is, number 1, and we knew this, the Dodgers are really, really good, and it takes a near perfect game on your part to beat them. You need to be good in all phases. Obviously, on Friday and Saturday, the starting pitching was not nearly good enough. Dug them into the kind of holes they just weren't going to dig themselves out of. Sunday, you get the quality start, not official designation, but 5 innings of 1-run ball from Foster Griffin. You get the offense, like you said, with 2 big home runs from Luis Garcia and James Wood. But you still need that third phase to finish it off. And that was a tall task to ask of this bullpen. And that brings me to my second point. They're 3-6 right now. They should be 5-4. The reason they're not 5-4, the bullpen. Blew a 4-run lead in Philadelphia, blew a 5-run lead against the Dodgers. Now you're facing really good teams and really tough lineups, so that's part of the equation. So I don't want to just jump to conclusions here and say this bullpen is never going to be able to close out games for them. But it is a problem. We knew coming into the season it was the number 1 concern going into this. The guys that they're trying to use at the back end of games either don't have the track record or at least recently have not had success in the big leagues. And that's the risk you take. And as you know, because we've dealt with them plenty of times in the last 5+ seasons, there is nothing more demoralizing in baseball than getting a good start, getting enough offense, and then having your bullpen not be able to finish it out. And those are the kind of things that can wear on a team in the long run. They all said the right things after this one. But a few more of these, it's going to be tough for them to remain optimistic because it just sucks the life out of your team when your bullpen can't close out a win like was the case on Sunday.
And up 6-1, it did feel like this was going to be a Nats win. I have to tell you, I'm watching this game. I'm saying to myself, okay, Nats will get 1 out of the 3. A nice Easter Sunday victory, even with the rain delay. Everyone can go home feeling happy. And instead, things fall apart. 4 Nats relievers combined to allow 7 runs in 4 innings. P.J. Poulin allowed 2 runs in 2 innings. He, at the top of the 6th, allowed 2 runs as he gave up a 1-out, 2-run homer by Dalton Rushing to right field to cut the Nats' lead to 6-3. Now, there within this bullpen implosion on Sunday were some interesting items. So, for instance, with P.J. Poulin, Blake Butera had Poulin pitch the top of the 7th, despite it featuring the Dodgers' numbers 1 through 3 batters. But Poulin tossed a perfect top of the 7th. So go figure. Poulin struggled in the top of the 6th, was brought back out there for the 7th, did a good job. Then we had Cionel Perez. He officially allowed 4 runs without recording an out. He would ended up being a 4-run 8th for the Dodgers, faced 5 batters and got no outs as he gave up a double, 2 singles, and 2 walks. The big blow, a 2-run single by Santiago Espinal to left center field on a 1-2 pitch to cut the Nats' lead to 6-5. And Blake Butera, during his postgame press conference on Sunday evening, revealed that the Nats believe that Perez was tipping his pitches. More on that shortly. Clayton Beeter officially allowed 1 run and 1 2/3 innings. He in the top of the 9th allowed a run, gave up a leadoff homer by Teoscar Hernandez to left center for an 8-6 Dodgers lead. That homer went a projected 414 feet per StatCast, and Andre Granillo faced 1 batter and got 1 out. So the outing that really stands out is Perez, and it was really interesting that Blake Butera was pretty forthright during his postgame press conference saying that the Nats believe that the Dodgers from second base were reading what Perez was doing.
You don't always see a manager come right out and say that and volunteered. He wasn't asked about it. We, had no reason to know that might have been going on. And Butera offered it up, and then Perez confirmed it as well. Now, he wasn't saying that was the only thing going on. By the time anybody was on second base, he'd already given up a leadoff single and then a double to Andy Pages. So he's already in trouble at that point. But once Pages is on second, Perez and Butera are saying that he was doing something that I'm guessing Pages from second base could see into his glove and see how he was gripping the ball or some kind of adjustment that he was making with the glove and the ball, and then was signaling to the batter. Now, that's perfectly legal. It's part of baseball. It has been part of baseball for over 100 years. It's incumbent upon the pitcher and the defensive team to combat it and not let it get to that. Now, what happens after that? It's a 4-pitch walk to Alex Call, so who knows if that had anything to do with that. Then it's the 2-run bases-loaded single by Santiago Espinal, and that kind of flipped the game. Perez faces 1 more batter. It's another 4-pitch walk, and now he's out of there. Total disaster of an outing. 5 batters faced, none of them retired. Yes, you'd like to believe that maybe the tipping had something to do with it and that they're going to go look at it, address it, make sure it doesn't happen again. It doesn't sound like this had been a lingering issue, at least not one they were aware of, that it was specific to this game that it happened. But in the bigger picture, Cionel Perez, he looked really good this spring, I thought. I think most people thought. He has not looked good so far this season. He's given up some home runs, including to left-handed hitters. He's not getting left-handed hitters out, which is what his job is supposed to be. And in this case, in what is at that time a 3-run game, he can't even get an out. And that's a problem because we know that this bullpen doesn't have a whole lot of experience late inning guys. He's one of the few who has done it. Now, he wasn't so good the last few years with the Orioles, but he has had success in the past. He came into the season feeling like he had sort of rediscovered something that he was able to do a few years ago. Well, we have not seen that yet actually implemented in regular season games. Whether he's tipping or whether it's something else, he's got to figure this out in a hurry because they're counting on him to be a big part of this. Was one of the only experienced arms they have, is in theory their best left-hander. And so far, he is not giving them a chance the way that he has pitched.
What's funny, too, is that he looked good on opening day. He closed out that 10-4 win at the Chicago Cubs on opening day, a perfect bottom of the 9th 2 swinging strikeouts, and he did that despite facing the Cubs' numbers 2 through 4 batters, Alex Bregman, Ian Happ, and Pete Crow Armstrong. So the good exhibition season, the good opening day, there was some optimism with Cionel Perez, but lately things not going well. I find the whole phenomenon of tipping pitches to be so interesting because it's the kind of thing where you're like, how come our team doesn't do it? Like, you never hear about the Nats doing it. Maybe they do it and we just don't hear about it. But man, that is, of course, an extreme advantage if you can do it. And if the Dodgers were doing it, look at the difference that it made in a game like this. It may have literally given the Dodgers a win that was on a one-way street toward being a loss.
Sure. And, look, they're not the only ones. A lot of teams in baseball are good at this stuff, some better than others. Some you find out about, some you don't. And then some teams like the 2018 Astros are using methods that go beyond what is acceptable in baseball practices to do. Again, it may be part of the equation here, but it wasn't the only thing going on. He still was not commanding at all. The other point here, and I know we were wondering in the press box at the time, and maybe everyone watching at home is wondering as well, why was he used there in that spot? The 8th inning, Freddie Freeman was the first batter up, the left-handed hitter, but then after that it was 3 straight right-handed batters. So why is Blake Butera using his lefty there? The explanation is essentially this. The Dodgers were using a right-handed heavy lineup today facing Foster Griffin, the starter. That included some of their bench players in the lineup, like an Alex Call, like a Santiago Espinal, playing in place of Kyle Tucker and Max Muncy, much bigger name, more experienced, more productive left-handed hitters. Butera's thinking was, if he brings in a righty, for example, Clayton Beeter, in the 8th inning, he's just encouraging Dave Roberts to go use those lefty pinch hitters right then and there and get a more advantageous matchup. So in his mind, the quote-unquote lesser right-handed hitters against the left-handed Perez was a better matchup for him than the better left-handed hitters against the right-handed Beeter. Who knows how that would have all worked out. But if you're wondering why was Perez in there to face mostly right-handed hitters, that was the explanation for it. But it's just another reminder of how deep the Dodgers are. When you have a day, you can give a couple of starters a day off, but still have them available off the bench. It's really hard to match up with them. And if you don't have good quality relievers that can get guys out from both sides of the plate, it's a tall task to try to get through late innings against them.
And it's a reminder of how shallow the Nats are. Like, a team that has restarted a rebuild, and you're relying on Cionel Perez, who has not had a good season since 2022. To be a key reliever. Like, at the end of the day, that's what's happening here. The Nats are relying on a guy who has not been good in 4 years to be a key reliever for them this season. So we should not be stunned that he's having some problems right now. We have seen the Nats make a bunch of roster moves here so far with Paul Taboni. Do you think Taboni's going to be quick to make roster transactions with the bullpen as it is really struggling right now? Or are there just not that many roster transactions to be made at this point?
There are some moves they could make. I think at this point, it would be more about having a fresh arm than anything. The other part of this whole equation is you look back to Friday and Saturday's games, and some guys have been burned up a little bit, especially on Saturday. He ends up going to Brad Lord for 2 innings and 49 pitches. That knocked him out for this game. Maybe he is somebody you would have wanted to use somewhere in there. Cole Henry, I know you and Tim talked about being surprised a little bit that he was pitching in garbage time. Well, he goes 2 innings and throws 23 pitches. I don't know if that knocked him out completely for this game, but it probably made him not the first choice, and maybe he isn't their first choice for high leverage spots. But what you had here, there's a domino effect of all this. So you have several relievers not available to you, or at least, have worked a lot the last few days. You have Foster Griffin effective, but throwing 95 pitches in 5 innings. So now you have to go to the bullpen in the 6th. And essentially, Butera is trying to get 12 outs, 4 innings out of 3 guys, Poulin, Perez, and Beeter. He got the 2 innings from Poulin and gave up 2 runs. He now has to go to Perez in the 8th. And even as it was starting to go bad, he's probably thinking to himself, I can't go to Beeter yet because I'm going to need him not just to finish this inning, but to pitch the 9th as well. So these guys getting burned up a little bit here. If they make a move in the next 24 hours, my guess is it would just be to get somebody up here who has a fresh arm who can help them out. I don't think it's so much about demotion for performance reasons and somebody else who's going to come in and all of a sudden have a high leverage role in this bullpen. It may just be, hey, we could really use a fresh arm because we just didn't get enough from our starters the last few days. And several relievers who you want to count on are going to be unavailable because they had to pitch multiple innings.
And there may be multiple moves for the purpose of fresh arms coming in the coming days. The Nats have a scheduled off day this Thursday, April 9th. Their next scheduled off day after that is not until Monday, April 27th. It's not often, I feel like, that you get one of these 2+ week stretches with no scheduled off days in April, but the Nats have one that's coming up here quickly, so the bullpen could be taxed here very soon. We'll see. Al Galdi here to tell you about Window Nation's end of March special. But before that, the Window Nation look into the future.
And the former Cy Young Award winner, Zach Wheeler for Lehigh Valley. Breaking ball rammed to center. Jones rushes back. That's over his head. And that thumps up against the base of the fence. Franklin heads to third, stops there on a stand-up double from Dylan Cruz. And Cruz tagged that one over the head of Jones. It banged off the fence right of straightaway center field. Second double of the year for Dylan Cruz.
Window Nation is ready for warm weather, and there's no better time to upgrade your home with great Window Nation windows than right now. The end of March special from Window Nation for Nats Chat listeners. The more you buy, the more savings you can enjoy. Up to 50% off all window styles, plus pay no interest for 5 full years. Again, up to 50% off all window styles, plus pay no interest for 5 full years. Visit windownation.com to schedule a free consultation. That's windownation.com. And tell Window Nation that Al Galdi sent you.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
So Woods down quickly, 0-2. The kick and the pitch. Swinging a long drive, left center field. Pages going back to the warning track, at the wall, and there it goes! It's into the red seats for a 3-run home run for James Wood. It's the Nationals 6, the Dodgers 1. James Wood with a towering home run for his second of the season.
The Nats offense in this series, the overall numbers are pretty good. Some of the offensive production did come in garbage time, but all things considered, I did not think that this was a bad series for the Nats offense. With the Nats offense, I don't think anything stood out more in terms of post-game comments in this series than what Nats manager Blake Butera had to say during his post-game press conference on Saturday evening about James Wood, talking about how Wood was out of sync, talking about how Wood was trying to find himself.
He's starting to put better swings on pitches earlier in accounts. He's just not quite in sync at this moment.
Wood in the game on Saturday as the Nats starting right fielder and number 1 batter, 0 for 5, 2 strikeouts, although he per StatCast did have the Nats' 2 highest exit velocities of the game. Well, the Nats in this 8-6 loss to the Dodgers on Sunday, 6 runs, 7 hits, which were 2 home runs and 5 singles, 5 walks, 2 for 7 with runners in scoring position. And sure enough, one of the homers was by James Wood. He is the Nats starting right fielder and number 1 batter, went 1 for 4 with a 3-run homer and a walk. Wood in the Nats' 4-run fourth, 2 out, opposite field, 3-run homer to left center field on an 0-2 pitch for a 6-1 Nats lead, the homer going a projected 416 feet per StatCast. Who knows if this is what gets him going, but it was great to see that, and he needed that.
He absolutely did. Blake Butera met with James Wood prior to Sunday's game and asked him kind of, hey, what's the state of things? How are you feeling out there? And Wood actually told him that he thought he was close, that he mentioned the hard contact from Saturday's game, felt good about that. You know, I think if Butera had heard something that maybe led him to believe that Wood was not in a good place, either physically or mentally, he might have, I don't know if he would have given him the day off, but maybe would have moved him out of the leadoff spot, which I know everyone has talked about. But he felt like, no, he got the answers he wanted to make him feel that Wood was still in a good place. And so that's why he led off in this game. You saw him draw the walk in the 3rd inning. I think that was important. We've talked about finding that balance between being aggressive early in the count, something they want him to do, but then also understanding that when he's going well, he draws walks. And he hadn't been doing that very much to start the season. So to show the patience, to lay off some tough pitches in the third inning, draw the walk is good. Now, that fourth inning at bat, this was like James Wood's season in a microcosm. He takes a fastball down the pipe for strike one. And you're thinking, well, that's a problem. That's what he should be swinging at. He then takes a very half-hearted swing at a pitch that's well out of the zone. It may have bounced or was close to bouncing in the dirt. And now he's down 0-2. He's been in these 0-2 counts constantly. And it's such a bad process, you would think, to take a fastball over the plate and then swing at a slider or some other kind of off-speed pitch that's well out of the zone. But what he did was get it right back and in a hurry. He got a splitter, and that's a bad pitch that Roki Sasaki threw. It's a splitter that just stayed right at belt high. But he was ready for it. He took a good swing, and he hammered it in a classic James Wood way to left center field for the home run. And so for everybody who's asking, why are they sticking with him? Why aren't they moving him down in the order? Why aren't they even considering sending him to AAA? It's stuff like that is the reason why, because as bad as he can look at times, he is perpetually one swing away from doing something big. And we saw that as a perfect example in this game. Yeah, the first two pitches might not have looked good, but he figured it out. He got the pitch he could do something with, and then he didn't, he made sure he didn't waste it when he hit that home run.
And knowing how good he can be, I just don't know about like this idea of sending him to AAA. And look, Tim brought it up on the last installment of the podcast. And honestly, Al, what happened with Dylan Cruz, I don't think we should dismiss anything as a possibility, okay? But like if you're James Wood and if you're the Nats, Wood needs to figure this out at the major league level. Like, I don't know what him doing well at AAA is going to do, unless he's just really messed up in the head. But it doesn't sound like that's the case. It sounds like more that, he's just got to get on track mechanically, get on track in terms of the process being better. And that needs to happen, in my opinion anyway, at the major league level, like against major league pitching. I think he's too proven at this point to say he needs a reset at AAA. Dylan Cruz isn't proven, so sending him to AAA I think is more justifiable. I think with Wood, it's like, hey, you're a major leaguer. You've shown that you can be really good. You need to figure this out at the major league level, like plenty of other really good major league hitters at times have to figure stuff out at the major league level.
100%. Dylan Cruz has not proven it at this level, and really he hasn't proven it at the AA and AAA levels, not as an elite hitter that forced his way into the big leagues. James Wood has done all that. Yes, he's been in a long-term slump, if you want to call that, since the All-Star break last year. But he already does have some track record up here. And as we said, even when things are not going well, he still has these moments that you can say, okay, he's going to be okay. He can still be productive. I agree. I don't think going to AAA is going to help him. He needs to see the way big league pitchers approach him, which is you're not going to get a lot of good pitches to hit. They're staying away from him. They're not going to give him a lot of fastballs. They're going to pitch him out of the zone, a lot of breaking balls, until he proves he can lay off that stuff, take his walks, and then they're forced to throw him strikes. So that only happens at the big league level. In AAA, they're not approaching hitters that same way. That's just not the kind of veteran, experienced approach. That's not the veteran experienced approach that you're going to get in the big league. So I agree. You got to keep him here to figure it out. Now, I could argue that maybe the leadoff spot isn't best for him to do that, but it's another reminder that this team is not necessarily that their number one goal is not try to win every game. Their number one goal is to get better. And especially for their young, important players to see progress over the course of the season. And I think they believe that he has a better chance of doing that, getting more at bats, which means batting at the top of the order. So I understand it and why they're doing it. But that's the reason that he's still here and the reason that they'll still have him playing every day and leading off, because number one, he's already proven it to some extent at this level. And number two, his best chance of getting out of it is to see major league pitching and do what he did there in the fifth inning against Roki Sasaki.
James Wood for this regular season has an OPS of just 572. Did you know that Luis Garcia Jr. for this regular season has an OPS of 883? He hit the Nats' other homer in this game on Sunday. He has the Nats starting first baseman and number 3 batter, just 1 for 5, but the one, a 2-run homer. Garcia and the Nats 2-run third, a 2-out 2-run homer to right center field for a 2-1 Nats lead. The homer going a projected 405 feet per StatCast. Garcia in the Nats 10-5 loss to the Dodgers on Saturday as the Nats starting DH and number 2 batter, 3 for 4, RBI triple, a double and a single. Garcia in the 13-6 loss to the Dodgers on Friday as the Nats starting first baseman and number 2 batter, 2 for 5 with a couple of singles. And CJ Abrams continues to do well. He on Sunday as the Nats starting shortstop and number 6 batter, 1 for 3 with a single, a walk, and a stolen base. Abrams for this regular season, OPS of 970. Wood is struggling, but Brady House has put up some pretty good numbers. Abrams is doing well, and Garcia is doing well, and nice to see him homer on Sunday.
Yeah, and that was a classic Luis Garcia kind of home run. It's a 97-mile-an-hour fastball, and it's up at the top of the zone, maybe even above the top of the zone. It sounds counterintuitive because that's not necessarily a pitch a lot of guys hit well. That is Luis Garcia's wheelhouse. If he can get a high fastball, he wants to do damage on it. He struggles when you get him down in the zone. So it was nice to see him do that. He hit another ball really hard in the 7th inning that Pages had to make a fantastic play going back to the wall to catch in the bottom of the 7th. I know defensively, it's been very shaky with Garcia at first base. There was even a moment late in this game it winds up being the go-ahead run with the bases loaded, and he decided not to try for an out at the plate, went for what could have been a 3-6-3 double play, and they only got one out. The defense at first base continues to be shaky, but it is nice to see that he is hitting the ball fairly well, and you just hope that he can do enough to not hurt them defensively and that he makes up for it with his offensive production.
What do you make of the Nats not having started Garcia at second base once so far this regular season? All of his starts have been at first base or as a DH.
I think it's telling. I think they know what he is. They probably figure we're going to give this first base thing a try. Let's not have him moving around from one to the other. And it's an acknowledgement that Nasim Nunez is an elite defensive second baseman, probably would be a shortstop as well. And let's mention Nunez had a couple of plays in this game that just stood out. There's one that it's a grounder up the middle, and it's on the shortstop side of the bag. And he actually cuts in front of C.J. Abrams to make the backhanded play and throw across his body to first base. You would never teach a second baseman to do that. That's the wrong baseball play to make. You want the guy who's moving towards first base to field that ball. You don't want to cut off your shortstop by going in the wrong direction and having to throw across your body. And yet, in that moment, Nasim Nunez had a better chance of making that play, I think, than C.J. Abrams did. That's not a knock on Abrams. That's how good Nunez is, that he could cut off his shortstop, field the ball on the opposite side of second base, throw across his body, and make the play. He is something special, and there's certainly an argument to be made that he should be the guy playing at shortstop. It's not going to happen. They need to try to get what they can out of Abrams. If there's any thought of trading him this summer, they need him to be looked at as a shortstop. I'll just view it this way. Having Nunez at second base is a big luxury because there are very few second basemen that can combine that kind of range and just a cannon of an arm from that position.
And Nunez was the Nats' number 2 batter in this game and actually got on base a few times, had a single, also had a walk. And Nunez in this game also had a couple of stolen bases.
Next offering, swung on, bounced past the mound. Nunez crosses over to the left side. Off balance throw in time for the out. What a play by Nasim Nunez on a ball that looked like it was going to be an easy play for the shortstop Abrams up the middle. With the speed of Freeland, Nunez, who has unbelievable range, crossed to the shortstop side and then whipped a cross-body throw in time for the out. Unbelievable.
A significant bright spot for the Nats in this 8-6 loss to the Dodgers on Sunday was starting pitcher Foster Griffin. We saw Miles Michaelis get shellacked in Game 1. We saw Jake Irvin get ripped in Game 2. But Foster Griffin in this Game 3 of the series did a really good job against the Dodgers. Griffin allowed 1 run in 5 innings with 6 strikeouts. He gave up 5 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 3 singles. But the homer and the double were by Shohei Ohtani. Griffin did issue 3 walks. He did throw a lot of pitches and a lot of balls. 95 pitches, just 52 strikes, 43 balls. But the only run that he allowed came on a homer by Ohtani, top of the 3rd. A 1-out solo homer by Ohtani on a moonshot to center field to put the Dodgers up 1-0. The homer going a projected 438 feet per StatCast. But, it's so interesting to watch Griffin pitch because it's a classic quantity versus quality type approach. I don't know that any one pitch he has is that good, but he has so many pitches that he's able to be effective. And we're getting a little bit of a sense here so far of why he did so well in Japan the previous 3 seasons.
He threw 7 different types of pitches in this game. And only one of them, I think, the sinker, that he threw fewer than 10 times. So 6 different pitches that he threw at least 10 times, and he will use anything in any count. And that's his calling card, to try to keep hitters off balance, that they don't know what to expect. It was interesting, in spite of all that, he did feel like, he had success the first time through, and then thought the Dodgers were starting to get better at bats against him the second time through, and then eventually a few guys that faced him a third time. And he actually was kicking himself a little bit for becoming too happy with his number one pitch, if you want to call it that, the cutter. He did throw that more than anything else, and that's kind of his bread and butter pitch. And he felt like they had picked up on that, and he was becoming a little too predictable those last few innings. Well, that tells you all you need to know about Foster Griffin, a guy who throws 7 different pitches, worried that he was becoming too predictable. He knows this is how he's going to have to be successful here. He knows right now he's taking advantage of the fact that these guys have never seen him before, or whatever footage they have of him is coming from Japan. He also knows that over time they're going to start to get more on him and start to figure him out. And it's going to be incumbent upon him to be able to get hitters out more than once, to not just rely on 1 or 2 pitches, but to throw anything in any count. I'm really, really interested to see how this goes. I think he kind of is as well. He's encouraged, but he also knows that he hasn't really proven anything yet, because the more teams get to look at him, the more they're going to figure things out, and it's up to him to make sure that they don't ever get too comfortable facing him.
So there's the cliche, right? Jack of all trades, master of none. And you could argue that that could prove to be the case with Foster Griffin, that he has all of these pitches, but, not a single one is like truly so good to where you say this guy can really excel as a starter. But you know what? There are many ways to get outs. There are many ways to succeed as a starter. And I would love for him to work out for many different reasons, but one of them is this is such a unique approach. I think it would be a really cool thing if this guy, with these 7 different pitches and with his pitching IQ, is able to befuddle, batters across MLB for so much of this season. I think that would be a fun storyline for the Nats this season.
I agree. I mean, look, they took a $5 million gamble on him, but they had to see something there that made them think this could work. And I don't want to completely dismiss his stuff as though he's just throwing slop up there, because I don't think he is. The cutter is a good pitch. The splitter, which is the pitch that he learned in Japan, I think is a weapon that he wants to use and can be very effective. You just have to pick your spots with it. The other thing, and we saw this with Josiah Gray before he got hurt, you can throw a lot of different pitches, but if you don't throw them well, it's not going to matter. You still have to be able to command them. You have to be able to make them look like each other. Maybe they're not elite pitches on their own, but if hitters can pick it up out of your hand, it's not going to be effective. So the whole idea of tunneling pitches, having them come out of your hand in the exact same spot, looking the same coming out of your hand, and then they move in different directions depending on what you're throwing. There's an art to that, and it does require being good and having the ability to command all these different pitches. So I don't want to shortchange him completely and say, well, he's just throwing junk up there and making it work. I think the stuff is decent, and I think it takes a particular type of guy to have that deep an arsenal and trust all those pitches and be able to throw them relatively where you want to, either in or out of the strike zone.
Official attendance for Sunday's game, 24,899. So we did not get each game in the series, each having an official attendance of at least 40,000. The first 2 games did get to that mark. And now we have the Nats' second home series of the season upcoming, a 3-game series against the St. Louis Cardinals Monday through Wednesday. And the Nats, again, are going with true starting pitchers, no openers in this series. Game 1, Monday evening, 6:45. Zach Littell will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 2, Tuesday evening, 6:45. Cade Cavalli will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 3, Wednesday afternoon, 4:05. Miles Michaelis will be the Nats starting pitcher. And, with the caveat of the Nats are a rebuilding team, so who are they to look down on any opponent? It would seem now that the schedule starts to soften a bit, as the St. Louis Cardinals are not expected to be very good this season. And so maybe, just maybe, the opposition lightens up a little bit here for the Nats, and they can get themselves a series win.
These are not your father's Cardinals. They have not done this very often in, decades, but they are truly rebuilding right now. I saw them several times this spring. I mean, they are all in on this with Chaim Bloom now running baseball operations. They're clearly not going to be the Cubs and the Phillies and the Dodgers. And so I want to see now how the Nats look against them. Doesn't mean they're going to run over them or win all 3 games or even win the series. Who knows how that goes? But I think this could be a better give us a better idea of where the Nats really stand and how much of this 3-6 record to start the year is a product of who they were facing as opposed to where the Nats stand themselves. If they have a really good series against the Cardinals, I think you should start to feel a lot better about where this team is at and chalk up some of these losses to the competition they were facing. Now, it doesn't get easier after that because then they go to Milwaukee. We know how good they are. And then they go to Pittsburgh, and the Pirates are on a winning streak themselves and look like they are intent on being serious this year in trying to win for the first time in a long time. So if you're the Nats, you don't take anything for granted, but you really do want to go in against the Cardinals and win at least 2 of those 3 and just feel like you're better than what we saw, particularly over the weekend against the Dodgers.
How about this, too, with the Nats so far? 6 of the 9 games, the winning team has had at least 8 runs. A lot of high-scoring games so far with the Nats here.
Right. And it's a sign that they are hitting. So that's good. It's also a sign that their pitching has got to be on. And it's a lot to ask for them to get not just a good start, but multiple relievers from this bullpen effective. I know you said you started this out by saying that at 6-1, you felt like they were going to win the game. I did have some doubts in my mind. And I kept thinking to myself, they need to add on here. 6 may not be enough to win this game. And as we saw, the offense kind of shut down over the final, second half of that game. Sure, 6 runs should be enough to win a game no matter who you're facing. But when you're dealing with this kind of pitching staff and this kind of bullpen, this may turn into one of those seasons where there needs to be a lot of emphasis on the lineup to don't let up. Keep going. Don't worry about what the score is. Keep trying to add on and give your pitching staff as much cushion as you can.
I mean, when you think April baseball, you usually think about pitching being ahead of hitting. You usually think about final scores of, 4-3, 3-2. We have had very little of that so far over these first 9 Nats games. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website you could check out too, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Here comes Sasaki's offering. And a slow roller hits the first base bag and deflects over the shoulder of Freeman out into right field. Picked up by the second baseman Freeland. He'll throw it into second base as Abrams will come in to score. What a break for Keibert Ruiz and the Nationals, who lead it 3-1. That was going to be the 3rd out of the inning, but it hit the first base bag and like a skee ball in an arcade, bounded right over the shoulder of Freddie Freeman. There was nothing he could do but watch.